I do hate it when books open by discussing the weather, but I'm gonna start this video by saying it's been 100 degrees here in California with a low of 99, and it's only March. It's supposed to be the start of spring. Where are the April showers, May flowers, June gloom? We jumped straight into the fiery pits of summer without warning. How am I supposed to sit down and enjoy a book when I'd rather peel my skin off and lie directly on the floor? But maybe that's fitting in a way, because the books I have been reading lately, they've all felt a little delirious. Stories about isolation, endurance, morality, what it means to exist inside a body, and sometimes what it means to want to escape it entirely. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Neverland Book Club. As you can tell, today's video is a wrap-up. These are not all the books I've read this winter, but they are some of the most memorable. I won't be mentioning the titles I've already made full video reviews on, since I said all that needed to be said in those videos, so if you're interested in my thoughts about Catabasis, Wuthering Heights, or my year of rest and relaxation, go ahead and watch those, linked somewhere. And so, without any further introduction, because I cannot stand to be under these lights any more than necessary, let's get into it. One of my favorite people on this earth is Mike Flanagan. I believe he's one of the most underrated filmmakers of our generation, and I'm so privileged to say I've actually met him and his wife, Kate Siegel, along with other members of their crew. So when I saw they were all collaborating once again to bring yet another Stephen King project to life, I knew I had to see it. The Life of Chuck is a short story told in 3 reverse acts. It begins with the end of the world and works its way back to a single life, Chuck Krantz. And though the beginning feels like the most absolute representation of cosmic and existential horror wrapped in one, the story soon begins to feel like reflection on existence, on memory, on the vastness contained within the ordinary. There was something deeply tender about this little short story, a celebration of life and a reminder that it doesn't need to be extraordinary to be meaningful. Small, fleeting moments are the very fabric of everything. After reading the short story, I watched the film about 3 times because I just wanted to share its message with whomever was willing to watch. It left me with that strange, hollow ache, the bittersweet kind that isn't exactly sadness, but acceptance, maybe? I definitely recommend reading the story, but I recommend watching the film even more. The cast alone is phenomenal. The directing is, of course, amazing. And I was crying at the end of each viewing in a way that felt so cathartic. Like, yeah, I really needed that. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Mike. I can't wait to see what you two come up with next together. All right, speaking of King and adaptations, I also read The Long Walk, though King wrote this one under his pseudonym Richard Bachman. This book was relentless. The premise is deceptively simple. A totalitarian America gives about 50 to 100 teenage boys the opportunity to enter in a televised contest. What must they do? Walk. For how long?
One of you left.
Stop moving, fall below a required speed, lose your mind, you're eliminated. What made this story so effective wasn't just the brutality, it was the slow psychological erosion. There really weren't any big twists or reveals, just step after step after step. The boys at first have this nonchalant attitude about themselves, and their objective becomes less about survival and more about endurance. The human capacity to keep going long after there's nothing left to move toward. It almost felt like a study on inevitability, in systems that demand everything and offer nothing in return. And in that way, it felt uncomfortably metaphorical for our own realities. I will say though, there were some points while reading I couldn't help but just roll my eyes because, I don't know, King's not the best at writing women, like their actions or thoughts. I get it, he wanted these boys to feel like rock stars for a brief moment on their long walk, but I don't know. Anyway, I have not seen the adaptation yet, though I plan to. And I know Mark Hamill is in this one as well. I think he either has an agreement with King or Flanagan, or both, because he's in all their projects, and I'm here for it. I love him. Did you know he's Fire Lord Ozai? How cool. All right, let's dive into some fantasy, shall we? Among the Burning Flowers by Samantha Shannon is a prequel of a prequel of a prequel. I may have used just one too many prequels. It felt like a little fantasy dream, a bite into fruit from a familiar orange tree. This short book was poetic, atmospheric. It was less concerned with plot and more with the slow unfolding of something intangible, legendary, maybe. There was an unwavering, underlying intensity to it, like standing at the nose of a dragon with its teeth bared. I love this world, I love the dragons, I love the lore, and I love the way Shannon writes these characters and these stories of fantasy so immersively. This read, however brief, was quite memorable, and I'm so glad I was able to snag a signed copy for my collection. Highly recommend if you've already read Priory of the Orange Tree and Day of Fallen Night. Though I think you could probably read it before those as well. I know a lot of people haven't read those first two books because they're so intimidatingly long, even though I didn't think they were. But if anything, this might be a more approachable introduction to this world, so yeah, read this one first. Okay, speaking of dense material, as you may have surmised from my videos as of late, I've gotten quite a bit into philosophy, and in doing so, I began reading philosophy texts. That includes Groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals by Immanuel Kant. You see, I had a battle with myself while reading this, because at its core, this text asks a question that feels both obvious and urgent. What does it mean to act with morality? Kant introduces the idea of categorical imperative, the notion that we should act only according to principles that we would want to become universal laws. It's a rather unforgiving framework for ethics that prioritizes duty over inclination, and I couldn't help but wonder while reading why exactly this needed to be written. I thought these principles innate, a natural desire to live in one's own morality of truth. Is that not what we all strive for as humans? Well, exceedingly not, actually. Reading this alongside writing my own book and reading others, I began to notice the root of a character's decisions more than the root of their desires, which made me ask a follow-up question. Did these characters choose based on reason, principle, or impulse? This is not light reading, and you want to be in an open mindset when you begin. Take notes, reflect how you're processing the information, and allow it to fuel your curiosity rather than answer it outright. See? It's fun, seeking challenge. Let's get into a bit of rereads for a minute. Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice is the modern classic vampire story. It's lush, indulgent, aching, yearning, and so wonderfully and unapologetically queer. And I mean that in the best way possible, by the way. I saw an interview from 1996 with Anne Rice where the interviewer asks her why all her characters are bisexual, and she says,
"Well, I have a bisexual mind. I see things bisexually."
Yeah.
Same, Anne. Same. Anyway, this isn't really a story about vampires exactly. It's more so a story about grief, about immortality as a curse, and the unbearable weight of time. There's also a constant tension between connection and isolation. The characters crave intimacy, yet they're incapable of sustaining it without total destruction. It's gothic, romantic, tragic, and dripping with existential despair. I also just absolutely adore Rice's writing style. She writes so sensually and effortlessly, it feels decadent to read, because even the darkest moments feel poetic and just beautiful. I own a few more of her books, but have not read them yet, and that needs to change. I know I've spoken recently about the adaptations, but if you haven't seen both the Brad Pitt Tom Cruise version or the more modern and, in my opinion, far more accurate series adaptation, please do. They are both worth your time. Okay, and last on today's list, we have another reread with Hamlet. While in the throes of writing this nude first draft, I wanted to remind myself where the spark originated. I'd first read Hamlet in 7th grade on a school field trip. I'm not sure where we went, but we were on a bus for hours, and I took those hours and read this play start to finish, and fell absolutely in love with the story. Reading it again now, as an adult, it felt so familiar and brand new. At its heart, Hamlet is a play about indecision, the paralysis that comes from overthinking, from seeing too many sides of a situation and finding yourself unable to act. Hamlet is constantly questioning everything, himself, the world, the morality of revenge, and in doing so, he becomes trapped within his own mind. There's also this undercurrent of rot, something rotten in the state of Denmark. And that rot extends beyond the kingdom as it seeps into every character, every choice. The tragedy of Hamlet is so deeply human, and I can't wait to see what stage of life I might be in when I choose to revisit the story again in the future. That wasn't too bad, was it? I know the list isn't all that long, but I've been busy. Though before I go, I did want to briefly talk about my two current reads. Right now, I'm buddy reading What My Bones Know by Stephanie Fu with a long-distance friend, and Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross, which I picked up after just a few chapters into What My Bones Know, because my God, this is an emotionally difficult read. Yeah. I needed something light and fun to balance out the scales. What My Bones Know is a memoir centered on complex PTSD. It's incredibly raw and introspective as the narrator tries to map her own mind and understand the patterns that have shaped her. It's heavy, but also deeply validating. Read with caution. Wild Reverence, on the other hand, has felt like a sleepy little exhale. It leans a lot into nature and stillness, and I love the way it just slows me down, placing me in the present. I've only just started though, so let's see how the rest of the 400 plus pages go. Alright, that's all I have for you today, dear viewers. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you're not. Today's shout out goes to Tower of Tomes. I couldn't fit your entire comment into one screenshot, but I just want to say I deeply appreciate your comment. The fact that Peter Pan and Wendy is your favorite novel is just so fitting for this channel. My entire goal with creating this community as the Neverland Book Club was to celebrate the childlike immortality of books, that we so often fall in love with reading as children and maintaining that wonder throughout adulthood. When I tell you to stay lost and keep reading at the end of every video, it's a nod to the Lost Boys, yes, but it's also a reminder to embrace the unknown of the next chapter you're about to jump into. Accepting that growing up sometimes can be a magical thing. And so, with that said, stay lost, keep reading, and stay cool. It's hot out there. Goodbye.